guys.
Hey, Dee.
You're looking at the camera when you said that.
Am I supposed to?
I'm over here.
Hey, Dee.
Hey.
Hey. So let's jump right in.
Okay.
We deal with a lot of really heavy topics on this podcast.
Yeah.
But this one is one that so many are silently struggling with. And a lot of the time, no one knows about the struggle.
Yeah.
So we want to proceed gently, leaving room for everyone to come into this space on their own terms. And know, if it hasn't been a part of your story, you are literally surrounded by people living with the silent ramifications of it being a part of theirs.
Yeah.
So a quick warning as we get started. This episode contains discussions of sexual assault. Listener discretion is advised. Today we're going to do something a little different. The folks who are featured in this episode, Rape Response, recommended a video for us to watch, and it was so incredibly moving. I know because I've watched it. Dee has not yet.
I'm about to.
We're about to together. We decided we wanted you to hear it too. So join us for the next few minutes and listen, or if you're watching our podcast on YouTube, you can see it on the video screen right there. The video is titled 1 in 6. Ready?
Here we go.
As we push play, we see a line scroll across the screen saying, "We asked 5 women to each read aloud a different account of sexual abuse or assault."
I was sexually abused when I was about 8 by an older male cousin.
I've been sexually assaulted on 4 different occasions.
I was 6 years old, the first time that I was molested.
A neighbor named Hank took me into his house. And at first it was hugging, and then his hands traveled. And when I tried to push him away, he beat me. And then he raped me.
And I was haunted by the fact that this happened in a little girl's bedroom.
For a long time, I blamed myself. I was just angry because I'd go to school and nobody in school knew what was going on.
When I tried to tell my mom, she kicked me out of the house and laughed at me and told me I would never deserve anything better.
It became something that lasted until I was 17 years old.
I remember after it happened and after he left, sitting on a bed for a while, torn up and saying, "I am never going to tell another living person about this." I went and got my friends, and I drove them home.
Thank you for reading that, Katrina.
Thanks.
Now, if you had the chance, how would you respond to this person's story?
I just feel like, or just like hug her. And just let her know it's not her fault.
You were a little girl, but it's not your fault, honey.
You actually have the chance to meet that person because they're here today. This is James Metters. This is Mark Godoy Jr. This is Isaac Andrade. This is Walter Castaneda. This is Glenn Hall. He served in the Army for 30 years, retiring as Command Sergeant Major. And what you just read is his story.
My name is Glenn.
What you just read was his story.
Oh my God.
How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Doing good. Thank you for reading my story.
I know the statistic is 1 in 6. I'll go into a room and I'll count 6 men. Like, there's somebody else in here. And they're probably dealing with it the same way I've dealt with it, which is not talking about it.
To share the same experience, I was young and I was in college. I was sexually abused. You know, we don't talk about these things, but it happens, you know.
I grew up in a Latino household where
I know what that's like.
my dad telling me, "No llores, cabrón. No eres vieja, you're not a girl, don't cry." And on the other side, you're getting abused and you don't know what to say.
I joined the Army to die. I was abused from the time I was born till I was 17.
Masculinity made me put away what I was feeling and not really deeply feel what happened to me and recognize and acknowledge what happened to me.
Getting suspended in the 4th grade, getting in a fight, getting expelled from one high school, it's all part of the abuse. And it's all part of me and my child, my inner child, acting out and starving for attention.
One of the reasons I rose in the rank of the military. They like tough guys. But inside I was dying.
Still makes me emotional. That what happened to me wasn't because of who I am. It was something that was done to me. It's not me.
I know a lot of males are too afraid to speak up, but I'm real open because I want to inspire the male survivors. That not just males with disabilities, but also males without disabilities.
I identify myself as a Black gay survivor. I had a lot of fear, and I just posted a link on Facebook saying, this is my story, if you want to read it, you can read it. And the response I got after that was nothing but kind.
Every time I share my story, especially as a man, I always hear back, hey, can I talk to you? Yeah, what's up? This happened to me too. This happened to me too. This happened to me too.
I'm not doing it just for myself. It's for many others whose voices not been heard before.
It's really hard not to cry. I'm really glad you've done the work, and I know that you changed somebody's life. So that's all I can say without crying.
You can survive it. You can get through it.
I think you're just so strong. Like, I don't know if you know it, but you're very strong.
Thank you.
It just makes you remember and realize that everybody has a story.
You think you know.
You think you know.
You think you know something about these things. But we've interviewed Rape Response. We're talking through these things, and I was watching it in the brewery. And I am literally sobbing. So reactions to the video. It's a hard one to watch.
Well, and I think it reveals our, what's the word, like our automatic thought about victims of sexual assault are typically women. And that just completely blew that out of the water.
So if you've only listened to the video on our podcast, trust us, we need you to watch it with your eyeballs.
Yeah.
Head on over to our website, wayfindco.com, to see it embedded on the Rape Response episode page. And again, that this is 1 in 4 women and 1 in 6 men that have experienced some form of unwanted sexual contact. These are really, really high numbers, right? It feels like it should be talked about in your family setting. It should be talked about in your school setting. It should be talked about in your faith-based setting. It should be talked about in your extended family setting.
Yeah.
It should, because it happens to so many people, it should be talked about all the time.
Yeah.
Friend groups and coworkers.
Yeah.
Your workplace should have. It should be being dealt with, and it's just not.
Yeah.
It's almost not in any of those realms.
Because it does affect so many people, and because it is not being talked about,
right?
Other than like the good work that some people are doing. So this is why we're talking about it, and this is why we care about it, because we know that someone in a room most likely has experienced this.
Yeah. So back to the statistic: 1 in 4 women.
Yeah.
1 in 6 men. I got a couple more statistics.
Give it to us.
On average, it takes women 10 years to disclose that they have been sexually assaulted, and men 20 years.
Wow.
That is so, like a decade. It takes at least a decade on average for someone to tell someone else that it happened to them.
Yeah.
So our own personal experience. When I first thought about this question, what's my experience with it? I thought, I don't know of anyone. And why did I think that? Because it hadn't happened to me directly. Then I started thinking about it. I'm like, okay, I know it happened to this one friend from elementary school. And then I know of someone in my family that I married into And then, I do know of someone else in my family that it happened to as a child. And that didn't come out till she was in therapy. And the therapist was able to help her brain do whatever it does so that she could recall things that happened before she blocked it out. So I know a lot of people, and I'm sure I know a lot more than that. So how did we find out about rape response?
How did we?
This is a very interesting. I had to think through it.
Okay.
We didn't. They found us.
Oh, really?
When we started Wayfind in the early days, when we first started posting and created our Instagram account and doing all these things, Rape Response reached out to us and they were like, "We love what you're doing.
Wow.
We want to be a part of it. We want to hear your story. We want to be in your database. Let's do the thing. Reach out to us anytime." And I was like, they're on the list. Yeah, it was awesome.
Wow.
So I still probably would not know
Yeah.
that Rape Response exists if they did not pursue us.
Which I feel like that's like the continual thing we talk about is no one's heard of Rape Response or whatever, like this incredibly valuable resource in our community.
Right. Yeah. So let's jump into the interview with the incredible folks at Rape Response. You ready?
Yeah.
My name is Jen Tarnowski. I'm the executive director at Rape Response.
Yeah.
I have been in this role since October of 2022, but I've been with the agency for going on 6 years. So I started as a contract educator, just doing part-time work, and transitioned into a campus advocate, then to the advocacy director, and then transitioned now as the executive director back in October.
Okay, so you've been there for a while.
Yes.
When did you first start?
In 2017.
Okay, so let's talk about the topic at hand. Overview of what's the problem that you guys are addressing.
So we work with anybody who's experienced any type of sexual violence, regardless of how long ago it happened. And we cover a 6-county area. So we'll work with anybody who's 13 and over. Again, regardless of how long ago it happened. Our name can be a little misleading because people think, well, I wasn't raped. If there was a child molestation, any type of sexual violence at all, we can be a support for them.
Wow. Do you have any stats on like numbers of people who experience any kind of sexual assault or violence?
So some of the CDC numbers are saying that 1 in 4 women and 1 in 6 men experience some type of sexual violence in their life. Numbers are very high, but a lot of those individuals don't come forward to get support. So that's kind of what we're here for, is to be that support for somebody. We've had people come immediately after something has happened. We've had people who come forward 50 years after an assault. We just had somebody probably about 6 months ago come in, and the assault happened when that person was 5 and they are now 55. Wow. So it does not matter when it happened. We can be a support for them.
Okay. Yeah, those numbers are insane.
It is.
Yeah.
And last year as an agency, we worked with 918 individuals.
Yeah.
So but there's so many more who are needing support.
Right. Well, do you find that that's a common thing, that once somebody endures something like that they typically don't seek out help?
A lot of people do not.
Okay.
For a wide variety of reasons. It could be somehow they think they're responsible, or they don't want to hurt somebody if it was somebody they cared about.
Yeah.
Most of the time it is somebody that they know. So it's not the stranger in a creepy white van that, when I was younger, that's what it always was avoid that. A lot of times, most of the time, it's somebody that they know, and oftentimes somebody they trust.
Wow. So that complicates it.
Makes it very hard.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Can you give us a general overview of sexual assault and sexual violence and how it typically plays out for the survivor?
So there's not really one typical way.
Okay.
We will work with anybody regardless of when they contact us. What our job is for any survivor who walks in the door is to let them know what all their options are. And my little motto is they can choose none, some, or all, and they can change their mind as many times as they want, because their choices were taken away when a sexual assault happened. And our job is to give them back what their options are and give them that empowerment back.
Wow. Okay. So, and then you said you have people coming in years and years, sometimes decades after an assault happens. What do you guys see happening in that space where they aren't getting any kind of assistance?
You know, a lot of things that we've seen are people are struggling internally. They're struggling because they don't know who they can trust. They don't know if somebody's going to believe them. And that's what we're here to do, is just to believe and support. We don't have to be the police to determine, you know, to look at their evidence. We don't have to do any of that. We just get to love and support somebody. So everybody's journey is different.
Right.
The individual who came in, who was 55, said to us, "I wish I would have come forward sooner."
Oh, wow.
You know, and that person was able to get counseling and extra support, and they just said, I didn't know that there would be people who truly would believe me and support me. And that's heartbreaking to me.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think, like you said, especially if the perpetrator is someone you know or perhaps are related to, and you're nervous about all of that, is it a thing where everyone who comes in necessarily pursues justice legally?
No. So what happens is if somebody's 18 and over, they have the option.
So it's always an option. It's
always
not
an option.
Ever like a force thing.
Nope.
Okay.
They can choose whatever they want to do. And if they want us to go with them or to call law enforcement with them, we can be with them on that journey. But if they're an adult, they do not have to report. And we might have maybe 40% of the individuals we work with choose to report to law enforcement.
Okay.
And that's their choice.
Yeah, yeah. And then do you guys, once they do report, what's your role after that?
So our job is just to be an advocate for them.
Okay.
To be there to support them, to give them a stress ball, to be with them if they want us there when they're talking to law enforcement, because talking to law enforcement can be a little scary.
Oh, yeah.
Not knowing what is this going to look like.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so sometimes we've been able to have law enforcement come to our on-site facility rather than going to the police station.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes we can do that. It kind of depends on what options law enforcement has. Yeah. But if they're going to the police station, we can go with them just to be that support and saying, hey, I'm here to hold your hand.
Are there any shocking statistics to you that you think the majority of the public just are ignorant about?
Well, I don't think people realize how prevalent sexual assault is, that it's happening, that 1 in 4 women have experienced sexual violence. So I've met people who say, Jen, I've never met anybody. And I said, you know, you probably know lots of people. They just have chosen to not share that information with you.
Right.
The fact that 1 in 10 kids under 18 have experienced that. And with those youth, 93% of the time, it's somebody that they know and trust who's close to them. So there are so many things happening, and we want people to know that it's okay, that we believe and support them, because that opens the door to that healing journey for them.
Right.
And that's what we want.
So let's just talk about you for a minute, Jen. Your story, like, how did you find yourself specifically at Rape Response?
So when we moved from Gwinnett County, we were moving north. My husband was getting a job at, he started working at University of North Georgia. So we were looking to move north. And I recognized that I really wanted to get back into the nonprofit world because that's where my heart was. And I felt like I could make a difference and be part of a team that is making a difference. And so Rape Response was looking for contract educators. And I had been working with middle school youth, and I thought, this is perfect.
Yeah.
So started really just as a contract educator, just to kind of get my feet back wet and kind of just see what's out there. And it sucked me in. And my heart was there. And I felt like this is where I needed to be. And I worked with one young woman who was in middle school who I received a disclosure from, and realized there is so much more out there, and that along with our team, that I would love to be and be honored to be a part of this.
Wow, yeah. Impacting so many lives for sure. Okay, you are the executive director.
Yes.
What does that mean? What do you do with and for Rape Response?
Moving into this role, a lot of it was now looking at what is our strategic plan? What are the needs of the agency? Are we meeting them? Getting word out into the community, letting people know that we're here.
Yeah.
So doing things like podcasts, doing media shout outs, doing events to raise awareness. It's not just the raising money. It is just as important, if not more important, that people know that we're here.
Right.
So if they need us, they know where to find us.
Yeah. So when we first came to Rape Response to like talk with you guys about the idea of being on our podcast, we left and I was like, I grew up in Gainesville and I had no idea that this exists. And I say that about almost every single nonprofit that we talk with. And that is the thing that just kills me. It's like all of this good is happening in all these places and you don't always know about it or ever know about it until you need it, which is so unfortunate, or if somebody you know needs it.
Right.
And I think we can do better than that. I think everybody needs to know about all the services going on so that everybody can learn about the magic that we have in our area.
Absolutely. It's, we should not be the best kept secret.
Yeah.
Because, again, statistically, 1 in 4 women,
that's so high.
1 in 6 men. We want word to be out there so people aren't trying to find us if they need it. We want them to be aware, oh, I already know who to call.
Yeah.
Or, somebody says, oh, yeah, I know who to call.
Yeah.
That it's easy. They're not looking on the internet trying to find, is there somebody who provides this?
Right.
We're here.
Right,
we
right,
provide this.
Right. Okay, so let's talk about you're here. How long have you been here? How old is Rape Response?
Rape Response started in 1988.
Wow.
So it's been here a long time, 35 years.
Yeah.
Started very small, and there was 1 person, 1.5 people, then slowly, gradually, expanding programs. The previous executive director, Janie Buffington Coates, really did a lot of expanding that programming. There was the adding of the campus advocacy program, which I was part of. We have a counseling program that she added on. So there was a lot of recognizing the needs, but then finding, how do we get the funding for this? Because we don't charge anybody for any services, and that will always be the way it is.
Yeah.
So how do we get the funds so that we can meet the needs of the survivors in our community?
Right.
We have a therapy dog now,
oh, wow.
Which is really cool.
Yeah.
Blue is our therapy dog. But now we have, Erica is over our entire counseling program.
Yeah.
So now we have 3 suites just for counseling.
Wow.
There's a need out there.
Yeah.
And so that's really our role, is to continue to look at what are the needs and are we able to meet them. The expanding of our forensic medical exams by our SANE nurses, the sexual assault nurse examiners. We started that program. We transitioned it out of the hospital. Those exams were happening at Northeast Georgia Medical Center.
Yeah.
So we worked with them to transition that to be under our facility.
Right.
And the response that we've received from survivors has been very positive.
Yeah.
It's a much calmer place. If somebody has experienced trauma, it's not easy to walk into an emergency room with all that busyness that goes on in an ER.
Right,
so we're
right.
able to provide that in a much calmer setting.
Yeah.
And that's really the model that the state is going to, is to have those exams happening in the community-based model. And, Janie Steckenrider, who is our SANE program director, works with her team of nurses to evaluate and determine eligibility.
Okay.
Always within 5 days post-assault, somebody is eligible for an exam. Sometimes, depending on the circumstances, it could be up to 10 days. And so what Janie and her team does is really look at that and say, yes, we can offer that, and have them come in and provide those services, again, at no cost.
I'm Janie Steckenrider. I am the SANE program director with Rape Response. So I'm a forensic nurse specialized in sexual assault evidence collection, as well as non-fatal strangulation and domestic violence.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Can you tell us what SANE is?
SANE, yes. So that stands for Sexual Assault Nurse Examiner. So again, those are forensic nurses that just have specialized training in sexual assault, caring for sexual assault patients.
Okay. Wow. How long have you been doing this?
I have been doing this since 2020. It was a COVID it was a COVID, I'm going to try something new.
Yeah.
And I fell in love with it. And then it has become my life. Yes.
Wow. Okay. What were you doing before?
Labor and delivery. So I've always been in women's health, which,
yes.
So the transition was easier, I guess, because of that. But just, I wasn't anticipating it was going to be kind of a side job.
Yeah.
And then I just dove right in.
Yes.
So.
Okay. So, and you do this for Rep Response. Tell us how all of that started.
When I was a brand new labor and delivery nurse, one of the nurses that I worked with loved her. And her daughter was very violently assaulted, but she was transitioning into that work. And she was talking about it one day, and I was like, I'm going to come work for you.
And the reason she started was because of what happened to her daughter.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, because she saw, I think, the gap in services. And I know a lot of SANEs that's a similar story where someone that they knew, loved, maybe it was them, and then they needed help and they couldn't find it, or the help that they did find was not good, and maybe more traumatizing than if they just hadn't.
Yeah.
So, so she kind of pulled me in, and then years later, another friend from labor and delivery was starting a management position at that center in Marietta. And it was just kind of a time of, I'm not sure I like bedside nursing anymore.
Yeah.
Went back, and like I said, I just loved it.
Wow.
The rest was history, kind of throwing myself into it. I was the SANE program coordinator for an organization in Marietta called Live Safe. Okay. Jen and I had established a connection kind of through mutual friends, or actually my dad and her husband worked together. Okay. So she was volunteering to help with a training. And when she saw us doing exams, training new nurses, she was like, we're missing so much in the exams that are being offered out near us. And so kind of we just started talking, and my dream, because I live in Forsyth County, had always been, I want to see these services really up and running out here, because the closest were in Gwinnett County and then Marietta, which if you've been assaulted, that's a huge inconvenience to have to travel somewhere for that.
Right.
So it just kind of slowly turned into this, first, how can we get the services that exist up to speed? And then it was like, well, it just makes sense to kind of start from scratch with a SANE program. So that's what we did. And January 1st, Rape Response agreed to bring us on. And so I've kind of led that in terms of the medical piece,
right,
and getting that up and running.
So did you develop the program that Rape Response currently has?
For the SANE, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So tell us about it.
So, we serve patients 13 and up. Regardless of gender, however they identify, if they're wanting forensic medical treatment, our doors are open. Whether or not they want to report, that's irrelevant to us. We're there. So, of course, there are parameters. Rape Response will talk to anyone or work with anyone that's been sexually assaulted at any time in their life. Of course, we have parameters for evidence collection. So it's typically very acute or very new or fresh when we're seeing someone.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So say I'm a client walking in, what's my experience going to be like?
So our clients come to us a couple different ways, either from the crisis line, law enforcement, maybe we'll bring them, or they're referred to us from the hospital, because the hospitals don't do these exams.
Okay.
Yes, which a lot of people don't know.
No.
Yeah, because they don't tell us this stuff in school.
Yeah.
So you go to the hospital thinking that someone can help you, and they can't. And so they'll send you to us. But when you arrive, you're going to be met with an advocate. So someone that's going to be that support person. And what's great about our agency is once that relationship's established, we try to keep the advocate the same kind of throughout their relationship with our organization. So you'll meet that person. We'll go kind of in a waiting area just to kind of acclimate to the environment. And then we go back to the exam room. But most of the exams are just talking. So they're like 2.5, 3 hours on average.
Okay.
But I've done exams that were 8, just depending on the circumstances, the extent of the injuries. Every exam is unique. But and that's kind of the experience that we want people to have, is one that is entirely tailored to them. Right. So there's no such thing as normal. We give them their options, and then we say, this is your time, your space.
Right.
How can we help you?
Right. So, and during this time, you're collecting statements and evidence, I'm guessing?
Yes.
Okay.
So the first thing that we do is just go over consents, and that's kind of an overview of everything that we can do. We'll talk about limitations, what my role is, so that it's very clear, I'm not law enforcement, I'm not prosecution, I'm not an advocate. These are, my role is very specific. Right. And then we get a medical history. We are still nurses. We want to focus on the health of that patient. And then we get into the forensic history taking, which is the part that takes so long. So very detailed documentation on what happened, everything from who, where, and then, building the story around that, painting a picture. It's about 25 pages of charting. Yes.
Wow.
So that's why it takes so long.
So, and do you find that typically your clients are relaxed by the time they're leaving?
They feel, in my experience, better. I think that having that really positive initial encounter is so important, and we hear it a lot more than you would think when people are leaving. I feel better about this after talking to someone, a little bit more empowered, because that sexual assault robs you of your autonomy, bodily autonomy, and so we're reestablishing that there in that exam room. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, it has the potential to really be critical in kind of changing the trajectory of healing, mentally and physically for these patients.
Wow. Yeah, I'm reminded of experiences that I've had, and I've not ever been assaulted, so nothing as traumatic as that. But where my physician didn't listen to me, didn't care what I was saying, changed the subject, moved on to the next thing or whatever. And you just feel so defeated in those moments. So having someone who is medically knowledgeable, listening to you, believing you, affirming what you're saying, I feel like that in itself is a little bit of therapy, maybe.
Yeah, I think it absolutely can be. And I've learned so much in doing this work that now I'm looking back at my practice beforehand. I'm like, there was so much that we missed, and so much opportunity for growth in healthcare just in general, with making the patient an active participant in their care. Right. And that is truly what these services are about. And I think, it's something that should be incorporated everywhere.
Right. Wow.
Totally.
Well, and I'm still shocked at the fact that you can go to the hospital or the police station and they're going to refer you out.
Right.
That's shocking.
It is. So there are some hospital programs in our state, but the vast majority in Georgia are community-based centers.
Wow.
So nonprofits doing this. And I think it's a much better model.
Yeah.
People aren't having to go into the emergency room, busy, possibly meeting wait times. And we know how overstretched hospitals are right now.
Right.
Like you're going in, if someone's having a heart attack, like they're probably going to be prioritized. And then the issue too is who's overseeing that practice. And that was part of the problem to begin with, was that there were some SANE services, but it was so outdated because the program had started and had never really been kept up with. So people received training 15 years prior, and there was no continuing education.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
That's a big piece of what I do, is like helping to maintain practice for us.
Yeah.
So that we're on the cutting edge.
Yeah, I love that. And we've been to y'all's facility. It's so
awesome.
inviting, so warm, so welcoming, and all of your staff is just over the top to make everybody feel comfortable. And I can't imagine a better scenario for someone who's been through something.
Yeah, we have a great group of advocates.
Yeah.
And nurses too. I can't say enough. We're still building that team. So
okay, so how many nurses do you have?
I have 5.
5
and
right
then
now.
Me.
Yeah.
I pick up a good amount of call, but I'm still looking for 3.
Okay.
So if you know any nurses, no SANE experience required, because we can get that training for everyone, but I need about 3 more.
Wow. Oh, I'm thinking of people right now.
Please send them to me. Please. It's contract work. So you only come in when you get called in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you've collected evidence. You met with this person. You've collected evidence. Now what happens for them?
So we will go over discharge instructions. I mean, very occasionally there will be something that they need to be seen for
Okay.
maybe more quickly than what we typically recommend. So discharge planning is a big piece of what we do. And then depending on where they stand with wanting to report with law enforcement, that's usually kind of the next is, are we turning this over so that it can be handed over to the GBI crime lab for analysis, or are we storing it in our evidence storage space?
Okay. So you will store it for people who don't want to report right now?
Yes. So our law in our state requires facilities that collect this evidence to maintain it for 12 months, which is not a very long time.
No. Yeah.
So my commitment is we're going to keep that evidence forever for the lifetime of the program, because DNA doesn't deteriorate unless it's exposed to like extreme heat, things like that. So we'll have their forensic record and the DNA possibly forever if they want it. Because people change their mind years later.
Okay.
And then we have something.
So I think that's such an important thing to reiterate. Like, if something has happened to you, you do not have to pursue justice on this situation right now. But you do, if you think you might ever want to, you need to go in and have an exam done.
Right. The evidence, because that is time sensitive. But yeah, we can hold on to it. I mean, there are exceptions to because we're mandated reporters. So obviously, like if a 14-year-old comes in, we do have to involve law enforcement. But the reality is you don't have to, at any point, like you can stop cooperating too. That's the other thing. And I hate to use the word cooperating because that sounds almost judgmental. But even people that initially file a report with law enforcement, if they decide that it's not something they want to move forward with, they're not going to get pushed back on that.
Yeah.
So that's the other piece of it too.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. But the kits don't get analyzed unless you report. So that's the other thing that we educate people on, because they expect results, but there are no results unless you're reporting.
Oh, so you don't get to know the results even. Okay.
No, because it's all through the Georgia Bureau of Investigation.
Wow.
So there has to be an investigation.
Okay.
So
anything else you want everybody to know about the work you guys do?
I just think it's important that people know that we're there.
Yeah.
That's a huge piece of kind of managing the problem of sexual violence. I don't think it's ever going to go away, unfortunately. It's a crime as old as mankind.
Yeah.
But this is how we make positive steps forward to making it better, is creating a culture of acceptance where people feel empowered to come forward and that they know their options, so that you're not, God forbid something happened to you or someone that you love, you're not scrambling trying to figure out what to do. You kind of know our name. If you live in this area, okay, we're just going to call them and they'll help us.
Yeah.
We'll figure out the rest, that's our job.
Right. Wow, that's awesome. Okay, and then one more question is there anything that you want to tell our neighborhood, North Georgia, about the people you serve?
It doesn't matter where things happened, or, if you're just visiting from out of town, we're not going to turn you away. We'll do those exams. They're completely free, completely confidential. So unless you've given me permission to tell someone, i.e. law enforcement, it's never going to go anywhere. So we're a safe space, truly.
Okay, so you've talked about doing things on college campuses. What'd you call that? Campus advocacy? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then you talked about your SANE, your exams for post-sexual assault. And then you talked about your counseling rooms. So you guys provide counseling. What other things do you, and you may have said more that I missed. What other things do you guys do?
So we do the big piece that our team does is advocacy.
Okay.
So we do what we call crisis intervention. It's really just a chance to meet with somebody who's not a counselor and kind of walk through what are the options. What are things that they're needing? What are things, how can we help them additionally? Do they need referrals to certain places? Our advocacy team is amazing.
Yeah.
And they can just kind of walk through. Sometimes the survivors just want somebody to talk to outside of their counseling time. And that's what our staff are there. Our staff will meet them. It doesn't have to be in our office. We've met people out at libraries. We've met them out at a restaurant, at Starbucks. Wherever they're comfortable, we will go meet with them.
Wow, I love that.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay, and then I think you mentioned this for when you started with you guys. are you guys in the schools?
We are in the schools.
What does that look like?
So we have an education program that was copyrighted. We were able to get it copyrighted during COVID, during 2020, which is amazing.
Yeah.
It's a Let's Talk Healthy Relationships. So we provide education 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, and then we have additional programming for graduating seniors, and then we just do regular education on college campuses. But the copyrighted programs, right now we are currently teaching in 5 of our county school districts.
Oh.
Last year we did education for over 14,000 students.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
And it is amazing. So our, Summer is the one who coordinates all of the education in our schools. And that's a tremendous, tremendous job.
Right.
Part of what we do is to raise awareness, to have students be talking about what's a healthy relationship look like. What is that? Is that okay? And it builds on the previous year. So they're learning more and more as the years go forward so that we're in front of them.
Yeah.
We usually get disclosures almost every time we're in a school. We get a disclosure from a student, and then we connect them with the counselor at their school and follow up with the counselor to offer services.
So when you're there to educate the kids, you're having some students come forward after the fact and saying that they have experienced some form of sexual violence.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I mean, how do you even handle that? Except for you have a plan. I love that you have a plan, but still it feels so heavy, so weighty.
It's heavy, but it is such a privilege. I mean, for us to have somebody trust us to be able to say, hey, this happened to me, and I trust you enough to come forward and share that trauma that I experienced is such an incredible gift. And so I always try to focus on the positive healing point, that we get to be part of somebody's healing journey rather than focusing on the trauma that happens.
Right.
And that's such an incredible gift.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, if it's happening to 1 in 4 women, then, I mean, if you always got totally weighed down by the problem, it'd be really hard to move, because that's a lot of people.
Absolutely.
A lot of people.
And, again, the more that we are talking about this, the more it becomes not a taboo topic.
Right.
If an assault happens, if somebody's experienced something, it was not their choice.
Yeah.
And it was not their fault.
Right.
So giving people the opportunity to say, we're here to support you, and you're not the only one who's had something happen, but we're here to love and support you. Whatever decision you decide to make is amazing.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. This podcast, everything we do is all about being a good neighbor. Really, really, truly, what does it mean to love your neighbor as yourself? And so if 1 in 4, I mean, I probably have 30 to 50 friends that are women. That's a lot of my friends who have had something happen to them. And I, wanting to be the best friend that I possibly can be to the people in my sphere, I want them to be able to flourish in life and be healthy and whole. And so if something like that's a pretty big deal, sexual violence has happened to them, I mean, I should be able to be a person for them that will help them in any way I can stand beside them, can push them in your direction, can know what options there are available and whatnot. So for someone like me who hasn't, and another thing Deanna and I were talking about too was, if it hasn't happened to you, it's almost like you never think about it. But then for the people who it has happened to, I'm sure they don't even balk at that number 1 in 4. They're like, of course it does. Right. And they're also probably connected with other people who it's happened to as well. So then for the people like us who we never think about it because it's never happened and we haven't experienced this, like, what do we need to know? What do we need to know to do if someone ever chooses to reveal that this is part of their story?
There are several things. One, thank them for trusting you. Because for somebody to come forward and say, hey, this happened to me, you have to be open and they have to trust you enough, and your reaction can be life-changing for them. because we've had people who have said to us, I told somebody, but they were like, well, really, did that happen?
Oh, God.
And so that's what we try to do is share, be open. Some of the strangest things, people will say the strangest situations happen to them. Our thing is, it doesn't matter. We believe and support somebody. So your initial reaction is, thank you for trusting me. Thank you for telling me. And I'm here to be a support no matter what you decide.
Wow.
And you tell me how I can help. If it's a matter of, can I get you connected with, there are resources if you want. There is somebody who I'm working with right now whose friend disclosed to them that other individual did not want to come forward, but I was able to connect that person through resources through the friend who I was working with. And I said, I don't need to know that person's name, but if they want resources, it's going to be on their terms.
Yeah. And there are plenty out there.
There are lots of resources. So we were able to get this person connected to counseling. That was not through us. They are not in our county. I don't need to know that person's name.
Right.
And at some point, I left the door open and said, if that person ever wants to talk, my door is always open.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Well, and I too, thinking back to, so we've already met with some of your staff for the stories episode, which is the following episode after this one. And it was so interesting to hear that the majority of the girls you have working for you all have a story of it either happening to them or happening to someone they knew or know. And then once that kind of moment of emergency happens, then they learned all about it. And now like they all seem like they are thriving working at Rape Response. So how often do you find that the people who you're helping want to help more?
Quite a bit. Because people will say, I feel so much better after getting that support, that you all believed me, that you were here to support me, no questions asked, that we had counseling and I'm in a much better place. They want to give back. They say, I want to be able to help other people have that healing.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely amazing. Some of our staff have gone through that. Some of our staff know people who have.
Yeah.
When you have some type of a personal connection, you're that much more passionate about it.
Absolutely.
And so we have an amazing team, and they love what they do. They work hard, and they are there to support survivors. And it's just incredible to see.
Yeah. What's Rape Response considered like categorically? What are you guys? You're
a 501c3.
Yeah.
Nonprofit. We are an independent, so we are not part of the government.
Okay.
So we are a private nonprofit.
Okay.
That serves, again, anybody 13 and over.
Are you considered like a sexual assault crisis center? Is that what it would be titled?
Yes, a sexual assault center.
Center. Okay. And then I think Summer said that there's one in every county, essentially.
Most of our counties in Georgia are covered by a center.
Okay.
So like our center covers 6 counties.
Okay.
So
every county has a place to go
somebody
to.
who serves them.
Yes.
Correct.
Would you think that that's the case nationwide too?
Yes.
Okay.
Most places do. There are some places that are a little more rural that don't necessarily have one.
Yeah.
So sometimes I think there might be just a couple counties in Georgia where, if we get a call, we will do everything we can to serve that person.
Okay. And say someone lives in one of those places that doesn't have a resource center like you guys, what would they do?
They can look at any of the surrounding centers.
Okay.
Any sexual assault center will serve any survivor.
Wow. Okay.
And there's a national website, RAINN, RAINN.
Okay.
And so no matter where somebody is, they can go to that website and find a center that's closest to them by putting in their zip code. They can find a center, but there should be any center in the nation they can reach out to, and somebody should be a support.
And how can the community partner with you guys?
So there's a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
It kind of depends on what somebody's fit is.
Yeah.
What do they want to do? We want to meet the needs of what they want, what is comfortable for them. We have volunteers who do all kinds of help. We have people who answer the crisis lines. We have people who come in who say, I don't want to answer the crisis lines, but I can come do some administrative work for you. Or we have people who want to donate things like clothing, brand new clothing for if somebody has an exam and their clothing is taken as evidence. We keep all sizes of brand new clothing, all genders, on site.
Wow.
Because we need to give that to people. So there's lots of things. Obviously, donations are incredible since we don't charge anybody for any services. To continue to have our staff, our amazing advocates, our amazing team, that's critical.
Yeah.
But there's lots of ways we want to find what fits somebody else, what is their passion.
Okay.
If they say, hey, I'm great at, we had somebody design our group room and furnish that. Beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Whatever it is that their passion is,
Yeah.
we'd like to make that happen.
So in-person volunteers or just financial donations, you guys are taking it all.
Absolutely.
Okay. If you could say one thing to our neighborhood here, one thing that you want everyone to know about the humans you serve, what would you say?
I would say the survivors we work with are amazing. They are so much more resilient than they give themselves credit for. And I would love for people to know that there is help and support available. We're here.
Thank you, Jen.
And Janie. That was incredible.
Yeah.
All right. Our aha moments.
Ooh.
Major things that stood out?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? What do you think?
I loved the part about her saying that one of their goals is to give the choices back to the women, like the choices have been taken from them. And so they feel it's really important to give them the choices back, women and men, which I just think is what that means is empowering. Like they're just empowering them to take control and make choices.
Take control of their story.
Yeah.
And their life going forward.
Yep.
Yeah. I agree. That was really powerful.
And I would imagine that seemingly like small perspective or small thing makes a huge difference in the lives of these people.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's a perfect segue into one of the things that stood out to me the most was Jen was saying that they believe their clients no matter what they say.
And don't you think that's weird, like that our society or culture immediately second guesses the story of the victim?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah.
Or the person who's saying like this happened. It's
right.
Like, well, why did it happen?
Yeah.
What were you doing?
Yeah.
Or like,
yeah.
Did it happen?
Mm-hmm.
Is she telling the truth? Is he telling the truth?
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's so strange.
Right. It is strange. Why we would do it to the person who is revealing to us that they have experienced some kind of pain or suffering.
Right.
And we're like, oh,
right.
Was it that bad?
Right. Which, let's just harken back.
Harken.
My brother gave me such a hard time for saying that. But if you think about really what we were talking about before about the shame that you feel and the courage it takes to talk about your story, then if someone is revealing this part of their story to you, then quite possibly the worst thing that you can do is be like, well, what were you doing? Or, like put that back on you.
Yeah.
Like it was your choice.
Right. Or you played a role in it. Yeah.
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 So I love that they, number one, like I mentioned about like empowering them, make them feel like the choice is theirs. Also what you said about them believing them no matter what.
Yeah.
I just love it. I think that's so important.
Right. Well, and as a person who has experienced different levels of weird kinds of things in my life and abuse, and it happens all the time that you tell someone something that happened and they think you're being dramatic, or they think you're not telling the truth. It's that little bit of doubt of like, did that really? I mean, was it really? Surely they didn't mean that. Mm-hmm. Where it's disbelieving me, the person who has been hurt, and it's believing the perpetrator, the person who's clearly done something that they shouldn't have done, knew they shouldn't have done, usually a person in power.
Right.
And what it does to you in that moment is, I mean, it's like everything gets sucked dry in you. And you immediately feel more wounded. You feel defensive, like you have to defend yourself. And then if you come out swinging saying, why aren't you believing me? Of course this happened. He even said blah, 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 or she even did blah, blah, blah. Then you now look like you're crazy. You look like you're Jerry Springer because you're feeling like you have to defend the story that you have had to live.
Right.
So it's just all these layers of when you choose not to believe someone, or you choose, I've had experiences in our family too, of where it's just like, well, we don't really do drama, or we choose not to participate in that kind of stuff. And so notice how I went real Southern. My accent came
embodying
right
your
yeah.
family experience.
Yes, where they just choose to pretty much say nothing.
Mm.
Say nothing because they love both parties involved. And they just want to be a healthy, happy, whole family. But in denying someone the ability to express their truth, their hurt, their suffering, their pain that has been caused by someone else that they know and love, you are further causing more damage across the board.
Yeah. It's not a healthy and whole family just because you aren't talking about it or acknowledging it.
Because you sweep everything under the rug. Yeah. So just that one part, saying that no matter what their story is, no matter what the details are, we believe them.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's refreshing.
Well, and it makes me just like want to encourage people to be a safe place for people to tell their story. No matter, I mean, we can't all be a rape response, right? Like we can't, maybe this isn't your thing to get involved in an organization, but you can work on being a safe place for people to confide in and share with. The other thing that I just love that they are emphasizing is that healing can happen. Like they're there, obviously to help them through the past, but the goal is for healing. And so many of these women and men who've been through this would say that healing can happen. And so I think that's hope for some maybe who are listening who haven't gone through that process of pursuing healing or talking to someone.
And the freedom that comes with healing, like that is something to seek out.
Yeah.
Okay, so where to find more resources?
Tell us.
I would say, first of all, we all use the Googles. So whether it's Google or whatever your preferred search engine is, you can literally Google search. Why do I use that as a verb?
Because it is a verb.
And a noun.
There's this whole thing. Yeah.
Okay.
It has become an accepted term as a verb in our society.
Well, Google, you are lucky that we have done that with you. Google sexual assault resources. Google sexual assault resource center near me, or put in your zip code, or put in your town, or sexual assault help. You can Google any of this, and all these organizations are going to come up. Some might be near you, hopefully near you. When I Google it, Rape Response comes right up for me. But there are national organizations and global organizations that come up as well. And one of them is RAINN, RAINN.org, on the RAINN site and on several other sites that come up. You can just input your zip code or your state and find every single sexual assault resource center near you.
Wow.
So that's super awesome.
If you have resonated with something that you've heard today and you want to support the work of Rape Response, you can go to their website, raperesponse.com. To give, you can click the donate button on their page. I want to encourage you to support any way you can. And if you can't, just be a good neighbor. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of You Don't Know, a Wayfind Collective podcast. All links for today's episode can be found in our show notes. On our next episode, we'll hear some stories from the brilliant humans who have benefited from the stunning work of Rape Response. We will be raising funds this entire season to support the work of Rape Response, and we'd love your help. You can donate and find more resources directly on our site, wayfindco.com, and on our Facebook and Instagram social media accounts. You can also donate to their cause and learn more about their work at raperesponse.com. Today's episode was produced and narrated by Deanna West and Lindsay Migliori, with music by Smile High, featuring Antoine Stanley. Wayfind Collective is a crowd-funded nonprofit. Our mission is to learn what it truly means to love your neighbor as yourself. Everything that we do is because of the generous support of many people just like you. So thank you from all of us on the Wayfind team, for being a part of this project with us. See you next time.